Yes, this is exciting. When they asked me to come, I pictured maybe 30 or 40 of us in a room chatting over my morning coffee. They didn't prepare me for this. Suddenly my hands feel a little clammy. Thank you. It is an honor to be here. I thought I would share a little bit of my story and start at the end of my story. And the reason I was asked to be here today, the privilege of speaking to all of you here today, it has started back in December when I was recognized as a CNN hero, and it kicked off a very exciting past 6 months. So I'm going to start there, and then I'll take you back to the beginning. They didn't prepare us for this part, so this is sort of off the cuff. Thank you. I've wanted to be a veterinarian my whole life. Since I was a child. And, my dad told me to keep it together. I don't know if that's going to happen, old man. He's here tonight, too. If I, as a child, could dream of doing something that was impactful, then I think I found it, or it found me. And I'm so lucky to be doing what I'm doing. And I have so many people to be grateful for. There's so many people that have helped get me here, my parents who instilled good values, my brother who helped me start the charity, Ian, thank you, our volunteer veterinarians and technicians, my family, my better half who's here tonight, my wonderful kids, Danae, my technician, who's home crying right now. Thank you. It's been a wonderful journey, and as I get older, I start thinking about those big questions in life. Why are we here? What defines us? Why are we human? And I think the answer, at least for me, the answer is in the question, what does it mean to be human? And I believe it's humanity. It's looking out for each other, believing in each other, helping one another. And all of these people embody that. This part certainly wasn't planned, but the 100,000 I want to celebrate with all of you. It splits evenly 10 ways pretty nicely. So it is my contribution to all of us. I want to say I'm honored to know you and to be a part of this fraternity. I'm here in part because I've been willing to share and give throughout my life. There's no reason to stop doing that tonight. I have one last quick thought. I was in the streets one day, and an unhoused man and his pet, after I delivered care, we got to talking, and he said sort of nonchalant, he hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. And I was due for lunch myself. I returned with a sandwich for myself and for him. He tore off, it was a sub sandwich, he tore off a corner of it, really just a piece of bread. He ate it, and he gave the rest to his dog. And they've taught me a lot too. I'll close by saying this: an act of kindness can change your day, change someone's day. An act or gesture of kindness can change somebody's life. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I joke about that moment that I decided to share the money. When I started as a veterinarian in 1997, I was making roughly $40,000 a year. And it would have taken me about 2.5 years to make what I gave away in 10 seconds. And I just joke with my friends, I think I blacked out in that moment. But those people were also deserving, and they're all doing wonderful work on the ground, grassroots, that in that moment I just felt like it was the best thing to do. So, but it wasn't always tuxes and galas. There was a time when I had actually thought about quitting the profession altogether. And so I call this my 7-Eleven story. About 14 years ago, I was a shelter veterinarian, and it was during the recession. So a lot of us recall the recession around 2008, 2012. And during that span of time, I was working at a municipal shelter in Northern California. And it was terrible. I got into this work obviously to save animals, but at this time, we were euthanizing 50, 60 dogs and cats by 10 a.m. And it was starting to steal a part of my soul. So I recall sitting outside of 7-Eleven one day, and I had thought about quitting. I was going to go in that day and hand off my resignation letter. And so I was sitting there in my car rehearsing this in my head, stone-faced. I did notice a man sitting outside the storefront, and he'd been there before. I'd seen him probably 5 or 6 times before, but sadly had just walked right by him. But on this day, for whatever reason, as I was coming out of the store with my coffee, I stepped over, and I noticed his dog had some sort of skin condition. And you do this long enough, you can start to diagnose things from, 8, 9 feet away, and it looked like just fleas. It just looked like a chronic flea condition. But when dogs have fleas long enough, bad enough, it can really destroy the skin. And this dog looked like a burn victim on its hind end. So the hair was gone, the skin was red and bumpy, was infected. I introduced myself. I said, my name's Kwane Stewart, I'm a veterinarian. I see your dog has some sort of skin condition, and the man was just desperate. He was exasperated. He said, yeah, for about 3 or 4 months now, she's been suffering, itching, she won't sleep, I'm miserable, she's miserable. I said, if you're here tomorrow, I'll return with something that should work, and I did, as promised. It was a $3 flea treatment, $3 out of my pocket. Or I guess as I say now, being completely honest, it was $3 out of the pocket of the shelter. I wouldn't have said that back then, I might have lost my job over $3. And 5 more minutes of my time, and then I saw the same dog and same man about 12 days later, and the dog was transformed. She was full of life, she was wagging her tail, she came up to me and gave me a kiss, and the man sitting in the same spot just looked up at me with tears in his eyes, and he said, thank you for not ignoring me. And that was a moment for me. I guess that's when I came into the light. Because prior to that, if I'm being honest, I had my own judgments, set of judgments about the unhoused, and at times was reluctant to offer help because I questioned whether they should even have a pet. I have completely walked that back. I've gone from judgment to their biggest advocate. Thank you. So you guys know some of these numbers. The part that you may not know is about 18 to 20% on average, state by state, are unhoused, own a pet. In California, that probably runs a little bit higher, closer to 25, 30%, I would say, in my experience. And what's interesting about California is it's roughly 13% of the US population, but 30% of the unhoused. So you extrapolate the numbers, there is no shortage of pets on the streets that I walk out and I care for now, almost on a daily basis. So 2011, that's when my story began. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just packed a bag one day after making a little pledge to that man I had met when I told him I was going to find more people like him. I started walking the streets day after day, usually after work or on weekends, and I would deliver whatever care I could right there on the street corner. I carried a bag full of medical supplies, and remarkably, about 80% of the dogs I see on the streets, I can treat out of that little bag. And it's wellness, it's vaccines, it's flea and tick, and I do what I can right there under a traffic clamp or in an alleyway. That was, well, 13 and a half years ago, and I haven't stopped since. So the best part of doing this work are the encounters with the people. Now, as a veterinarian, I will also confess that I went this route versus human medicine because, I didn't like people. I think if you ask most veterinarians, they will tell you, I do this work because I really don't like people. But as you come to learn, you're dealing with the people every bit as much, even more so, as their spokesperson. Let me tee this up. So this is a man named Richard. Richard is a veteran suffering from PTSD. He wasn't a man of means, and I gathered this on the first day I met him. He came into my clinic. His car was barely drivable. He had the rear view mirror taped up, and there was pieces of metal hanging off. He later told me he lived in a trailer, was living on his retirement. It wasn't much money. But he came in and he said, "Doc, my dog's not urinating." And first thing I did was take an x-ray, and I found, as you see here in this picture, about 200 bladder stones. In fact, this is probably more bladder stones than I've ever found in a dog's bladder. So you can see in that picture down in the left-hand corner, she was unable to urinate because her bladder was just impacted with stones. I explained to him it's going to require surgery, and I gave him an estimate. And the estimate ran somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000, $5,500. He didn't bat an eye. He said, "Doc, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out." He said, "That's why they invented oatmeal. I will make sure I get the money." He walked out, and I called him later. I said, "You know, Richard, I'd love to post your story on my social media site and just see if I can help raise money." He said, "Sure." He said, "That's fine." He wasn't expecting much, so I did. And within 5 days, I'd raised $13,000 for him and Courtney. But the best part is here when I decided to share the news. I put together an estimate for the surgery. And like I said, it includes everything. The anesthesia, the blood work, the procedure. Yeah, I posted your picture in the story. I was trying to raise money for her procedure at Portland. But this, after the money I raised, this is what you're gonna have to pay.
Dr. Stewart. That's wonderful. God. I lost my twin brother 17 years ago, and I don't think I've cried since.
You're welcome.
God said.
So Courtney's doing great today. That was his support system. He said he was alive because of Courtney. Just as a follow-up, the $7,000 or $8,000 that was left over, I put in reserves for him and his other two pets and said, anytime you need anything, the money is here waiting for you. You know what he told me? He said, "Nope, you pay it forward, Doc, you pay it forward." So this is another Richard, and Richard was unhoused. He was living in his car, and I happened upon him about 3 years ago in San Diego. That's where I reside. And Richard just had an impressive attitude. Just you meet some of these people, as you guys know, they have so much hope. You go out in the world and people are complaining about their coffee not being the right temperature, and then you go on the streets and you meet some of these people, and they're just looking towards the next day. And they give you a bit of inspiration. That was Richard. He had been living in his car for about 2 years. What's interesting is his brother also lived in San Diego, but his brother could not accept his dogs. He said, "Brother, you can come live with me, but you can't bring your dogs." There was some sort of medical issue, I think an allergy. So Richard just said, I'll live in my car and I'll figure it out. I will never separate from my dogs.
She's been with me since she was 6 weeks old, and she's been with me since she was born.
I don't know anybody else could imagine being a day without him.
Man, you know what? My brother really wants me to give him up, but I can't do that. Well, he lives out here. He's got a place for me, but I can't give him up, man.
So Richard and I stayed in touch, and on my little media tour after the whole CNN thing, I decided to bring Richard out to New York with me and let him tell the story.
Recently, you went beyond pets, so tell us about Richard.
You can't help but make a connection to the people, obviously. Yeah. And I was in San Diego, my hometown is San Diego, and I came across this gentleman. And we got to talking after I treated his dogs, Princess Leia and Pudding.
Yes.
He's a crazy Star Wars guy. And I walked away and I want to help this guy. I reached out to a friend of mine, a partner, a listed pet. Mm-hmm. And together we bought Richard a brand new van. So at least he could have a better place to sleep, heat, warmth, get around, stayed in touch. And yeah, we're pretty tight. We help each other out now.
I'm just in shock that someone would do that for a total stranger. You know what I mean? And not expect anything in return.
Everybody, Richard is actually in our audience. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Oh, you got me. What was that moment like? That had to change your life, like getting that van.
It did, and I can't believe it. I still can't believe it. 3 days after the gifting of the van, My brother puts me in contact with one of his friends. He gives me a job as a security guard. I'm a security guard.
Yeah.
4 months. 4 months after that, Dr. Kwane had put me in contact with the Veterans Administration. I never asked him for anything till I met Dr. Kwane. And 4 months after that, they housed me. So.
Oh, you want to say something, right, to Dr. Kwane?
You know what? Hey, I love you, Dr. Kwane. You're awesome. I honestly feel that you're an angel on this planet. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't be housed. Thank you.
And Richard and I are still friends today. We do help each other out. So just some quick info on the charity. I lead with the motto, no judgment, just help, and that was after my own experience, my own judgments. And what was once a one-man band, me, 11 years ago, is now expanded to 8 different cities around the country, and I have volunteer vets in multiple communities doing exactly what I do in Southern California. It's growing by the day. There are some of the stats from 2023 and the expansion. And now the dream can really push on. I never imagined that what started as a chance encounter from the 7-Eleven would end up turning into all this. So what I've learned, I could go on and on. I have learned that these people I've met in the streets are just people. And I am no better than them, and they are no different than me. I've learned that their pets are their lives. In many cases. They keep them breathing. I'd met a lady in the streets one day, and she said, 2 weeks ago, I was about to take my life. By her own admission, she had completely lost the support of friends and family in her life. She was a drug addict for the better part of 9 years. And over time, as some of you have seen, everyone around her had left her. She only had her dog. She had it all planned out. She was going to take this handful of pills, drink a bottle of whiskey, and call it good. But on this night, she said she looked over and saw her dog sleeping. This one was pretty recent, so it still gets me too. And she just said, well, if I go tonight, who's going to feed you in the morning? So that is what these pets mean to these people. And that is why I do what I do. The other thing I wanted to say, and this is something I've learned over time, is I feel like we've gotten away from who we are. I still love this country. And when I think about the principles that this country was founded on, hard work and enterprise, and secondly, and just as important, looking out for thy neighbor. And because of this political climate, become so polarizing, economic situation, we really have gotten away from looking out for each other. My dad was raised in the South, Monroe, Louisiana, household of 10 brothers and sisters. He always told me growing up that if anybody was hungry in the neighborhood, they always had a seat at this table. Big Mama would cook up whatever they needed and send them on their way. It could have been a neighborhood kid, it could have been a family that was struggling, but they were always looking out for each other. You know, I think to some degree, and this was told to me by a friend of mine, we are all experiencing homelessness. We're not all on the streets and suffering as some of these folks are, but we probably know somebody who is, we have a friend or a family member who's been there, perhaps it's encroaching in your own neighborhood. We're all seeing it, we're all experiencing it, and therefore we have an obligation to do something about it. All of us, collectively. In the time that I've been doing this, and yes, it has been the most rewarding 27 years of my life, I have discovered that when we do something out of love and not out of obligation, without agenda, without pay, that is when you feel your human spirit. That is when you feel alive. I've never been paid for the work I do, and I've told people I will never take a dime. We run on donations, but I've never paid myself, nor my veterinarians. We do what we do out of love. We lead with our heart. I was telling my son, I have a 23-year-old son who just graduated from college. I told him that, and he said, "Dad, that's cheesy. Don't lead with that." I said, "Don't worry, son. Keep living, keep growing." This little saying sits on my fireplace, on my mantle. It was given to me by Dr. Schmidt. She's my superstar Atlanta veterinarian who reached out on something called Instagram, which I don't like, a few years ago, and said, "I want to do what you do." She says she's one of my disciples. And she says she goes out every day and she leads with kindness. And I say I do the same. I want to thank all of you for hearing my little journey. We do have a lot more work to do, and nobody knows that more than you. I want to recognize all of you as well. As I said, when I was brought into the fold many years ago, I had no idea what we were up against. But I do believe together, working together, helping each other, and leading with love, we will get there. Thank you.